Cosa, the ancient Roman town. Situated on the summit of the hill of Ansedonia, it is one of the most important excavations in Tuscany. Here the archaeological guide from Alzavola in English language. At first, in Tuscany and northern Lazio, there used to live the Etruscans, who maintained their rich culture for several centuries. However, in the 4th century before Christ, the Etruscans were exhausted by numerous defeats, and they were divided into 12 city-states. So their decline began. The Romans succeeded quickly in conquering their territory, and in a few decades they defeated the Etruscan city-states. In this way, the powerful Etruscan town of Vulci definitely surrendered in 280 before Christ, and the control of the nearby Tyrrhenian coast passed to the Romans. So it happened that few years later the Romans founded the town of Cosa, exactly in the year 273 before Christ. For this purpose, they chose as their location the summit of the hill of Ansedonia, because from this point they were able to control the surrounding area and quickly fend off any attacks by the Etruscans, who were initially hostile to the Roman occupying forces. In addition, the excellent overview of the coast made it possible to control the Tyrrhenian Sea, which was largely dominated by the enemy Carthaginians. The city of Cosa was founded as a Roman colony by Latin law, which means that the city was not dependent on Rome but was managed autonomously. This means that Cosa had its own city chief and its own judge. Thus, the city was able to defend itself quickly in the event of sudden dangers, such as possible attacks by the Etruscans. The need for the Romans to defend themselves becomes particularly clear when one looks at the mighty city walls. They are so sturdily built that nothing remains as good throughout the whole archaeological site as these walls. They circle the entire settlement and are totally long 1.5 kilometers. The walls are made up of large grey-colored blocks of sandstone, which have modified to fit together. The city walls were also equipped with a total of 18 watchtowers, 17 of which were square and 1 was round. Only a few of these watchtowers had a room inside. These watchtowers, as an additional inset in the city wall, appear here in Cosa for the first time at all in Roman architectural history. Access to the city was possible through 3 city gates. In the northwest is the so-called Porta Fiorentina, in English Florentine Gate. This city gate still serves as the main access to the archaeological site. It is clearly visible that the gate had internal rooms. Going through this city gate, one discovers on the right a horreum, that is a warehouse for grain or other goods. In the northeast is the so-called Porta Romana, in English Roman Gate. It is the city gate which is best preserved because there are still visible the grooves in which the portcullis ran. Cosa is a typical example of Roman urban architecture with straight paved roads that intersect at right angles, forming parcels for the dwellings. Each house had a rectangular shape and was divided into a front living area and a rear garden. If you come from the parking lot and go up in the direction of the museum, you will cross former residential areas and will notice numerous brick arches at ground level. These are the remains of cisterns for collecting rainwater, which were created under the houses. A typical example of a Roman home in Cosa is the Casa di Diana, the house of Diana. It is located near the Forum. To the side of the entrance area are shops, which were aligned directly to the Forum. Through the corridor you enter the atrium. That is a central area in the middle of which a collecting basin for rainwater was created, the so-called impluvium. The bedrooms, cubiculae in Latin, can be reached from the atrium. At the end of the atrium there is the tablinum, a salon where guests were received. Right next to it there is the dining room, called triclinium. To the left of the tablinum, a corridor leads past small workshops to the garden, which is on the same level as the residential building because the rocky ground has been removed for this purpose by 2 meters. This outdoor area was initially a vegetable garden, but soon was transformed into an ornamental garden with flowers. Only much later the small temple was built. From a loggia, guests could enjoy the view into this garden. To the side of the garden there are 2 rooms with drainage. It is probably a bath or a small spa. The building, Casa dello Scheletro, is a well-maintained residential building. It is located just behind the museum. The name Casa dello Scheletro, in English skeleton house, goes back to the fact that in the cistern of the house a human skeleton was found. The precious mosaic floors indicate that the owner of the house was very wealthy. The distribution of the rooms is the same as in all Roman dwellings. Just after the entrance area, you enter the atrium with a collecting basin in the middle. From this atrium, you get into the bedrooms. Just opposite the entrance, there is the salon, and next to it the dining room. A luxurious portico serves as a transitional space between the house and the garden. Here the garden is elevated and accessible by a small staircase. It is likely that the house had a first floor which was probably reserved for the service staff. Here ends part 1 of the guided tour through the ancient Roman town of Cosa. In the video part 2 about Cosa, you will find explanations to the Forum, the Acropolis, to the museum, and also general hints concerning the opening times and the approach.